morning. Good morning. Good morning. I love the good mornings. It's a full house this morning. Welcome. Welcome to the Boise Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. I am the Reverend Sara LaWall. I use she, her pronouns, and it is my great honor to serve this beloved community. We are a spiritually diverse, justice-seeking religious community with one great aim, proclaiming the power of love at the core of our living tradition. Love of neighbor, love of ourselves, and love for our planet. Whoever you are and wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you are welcome here. Whatever faiths you have known, if any, whatever doubts you carry with you, you are welcome here. Whomever you love, however you identify, you are welcome here. I'm joined this morning by Patricia Heeb, who is serving as our celebrant and our fantastic choir with us to offer music this morning. We're so glad you've joined us. A special welcome to our online community. Let's turn and wave and say good morning to all of you worshiping on Zoom. If you're able, of course, you know the drill now. You can turn those cameras on for just a moment so that we can see your beautiful faces here in the sanctuary and welcome you among us this morning. Welcome, Terry Kay. Oh, and Nancy and the AV coordinator and Eileen. It's always good to be reminded that we worship as one beloved community beyond the walls of our sanctuary. I also want to welcome newcomers who are joining us this morning. If you're joining us for the first or second time, we know it takes a lot of courage to check out a new community, and we're so glad that you've chosen us. We invite you to introduce yourselves to us after the service during our hospitality time so that we can warmly welcome you, or in the chat if you're new with us on Zoom. We invite you to fill out newcomer forms, which are in our entryways, and we'll put a link in the chat as well, so that you can keep up to date with all that is happening here in our fellowship. And today, I will remind all of us that we have a connections fair out in the courtyard immediately following the service. Of course, go get your coffee first if you like. And then come and tour all of the different groups, small groups and teams and committees that are coming together, serving this congregation, all of the many ways that you can get connected. Even those of you that have been here for a really long time and maybe you think you know all the groups that are out there, perhaps you'll discover one you didn't even know existed. And you might find new ways that you want to connect with folks in the fellowship. So please join us for our Connections Fair. Each week, we begin our worship services centering ourselves by lighting our flaming chalice, a beacon of hope, love, and justice, the symbol of our free faith. As we light the chalice here in the sanctuary, I invite those of you who are in our virtual community to light your chalices, or a candle if you have one nearby, and then share in the chat where it is you have lit your chalice this morning. I invite us all to join our voices together, connect our breath together as one community as we rise in body or spirit to sing our gathering hymn, number 1008 in our teal hymnal. Words on the screen, and you are welcome to follow along in the hymnal.
Holy place, We come from and live on land considered sacred by many indigenous peoples, known as Bannock, Shoshone, Paiute, and many other tribes that lived here sustainably for thousands of years, inhabiting a vast region including much of Idaho.
We recognize the long history of the land, long before colonization, and acknowledge the ancient tribes whose names have been lost in history.
With this acknowledgement, we wish to demonstrate our commitment to dismantling the legacies of settler colonialism. We honor Indigenous peoples' connection to the land and support their right to sovereignty.
In the challenges of these truths, may we move through the world bringing justice in every way that we can, listening to the truths spoken to us by Native American peoples, making space for them to re-inhabit this place, and giving them back the resources they need to heal their communities.
This year, our overarching framework for the spiritual themes is the practices of our faith. This framework invites us to focus on how Unitarian Universalism is a lived faith that inspires us to act out our values in the world. The framework is also a way for us to connect to those values, our new UU core value of liberating love, with each of our monthly themes framed as a practice that helps us embody that liberating love in our daily lives. So for this month of October, we begin a new theme, Living Love Through the Practice of Deep Listening. And we've structured this month's services around 4 areas of deep listening: listening to ourselves, listening to beloved community, listening to the mystery, spirit, God, and listening to nature. So I hope you'll be able to join us for all 4 services and give yourself the fullness of the experiences in the practice of deep listening. Today we begin with listening to ourselves and how the practices and principles of real self-care can help us better tune into that inner wisdom and inner knowing. As we enter into this time of worship together, let's all take a breath together. Fill your body with breath. Invite yourself to let go of whatever burdens you might have carried in here this morning. Let them go for just this time that we're together. Breathe, knowing that our breath connects us to one another, to our bodies, to our planet. Our breath offers us an opportunity for stillness, to tune in to our spiritual center, to listen deeply to our heart's own longing. Thou art the song of my heart in the morning. Thou art the dawn of truth in my soul. Thou art the dew of the roses adorning. Thou art the woven whole. Thine is the grace to be steadfast in danger. Thine is the peace that none can destroy. Thine is the face of the need-riven stranger. Thine are the wings of joy. Thou art the deep, to the deep in me calling. Thou art a lamp where my feet shall tread. Thy way is steep past the peril of falling. Thou art my daily bread. Thine be the praise of my spirit uplifted. Thou art the sea to each flowing stream. Thine be the days that are gathered and sifted. Thou art the deathless dream.
easy it is to listen to that. Our call to worship this morning is from Howard Thurman. How good it is to center down, to sit quietly and see oneself pass by. The streets of our minds seethe with endless traffic. Our spirits resound with clashings, with noisy silences. While something deep within hungers and thirsts for the still moment and the resting lull. The questions persist. What are we doing with our lives? What are the motives that order our days? What is the end of our doings? Where are we trying to go? Over and over, the questions beat in upon the waiting moment. As we listen, floating up through all the jangling echoes of our turbulence, there is a sound of another kind, a deeper note which only the stillness of the heart makes clear. It moves directly to the core of our being. Our questions are answered, our spirits are refreshed, and we move back into the traffic of our daily round with the peace of the eternal in our step. How good it is to center down. Come, let us worship together.
Beautiful words from theologian Howard Thurman. So hopefully we can continue to center down together as a beloved community committed to being a multi-generational community, a community of generosity, and a community of care and connection. And in that spirit, I would like to invite all of our young people and young at heart to come on down over here for our time for all ages this morning. Good morning, friends. It's good to see all of you this morning. Good morning. So many things. The Wonder Box is back. I wonder what is in the Wonder Box. Do you know what else is back? It's a new month, and so at the start of a new month, we have a new Earth teacher. Yes, we're getting there. I know, it's still new. It's okay. A new Earth teacher this morning. And so our Earth teacher is right here in our magical Wonder Box. I wonder what it is. I wonder what it is. You got to open the Wonder Box last week, I remember. Amelia, would you like to come up and open the Wonder Box? I know, it's so exciting. This wouldn't fit in the Wonder Box entirely, so I turned it around so you couldn't peek. But here you go, Amelia. Here we go. Let's open it up. Oh my gosh. What is it, everybody? Do you know what this is? What is it? It's a conch shell. It's a big seashell. Thank you, Amelia. You can sit down. Isn't that gorgeous? Have you ever seen one this big before? You have? Yeah? I have not. This seashell comes from Patricia and Mark's house. And isn't it, it's so astonishing. I have never seen one this big. Why do you think this seashell is our Earth teacher for this month of October when we're talking about deep listening? Cambria?
I had a thing for it.
Yeah, what's the story of a seashell? What do you do? Yes?
You put it up to your ear and it gives you the same.
You put it up to your ear. Does it work? Have you tried it?
No, it doesn't work.
It's not true. It's working. It's working. I will let this go back with Emily into the classroom to help you listen because it does not belong to us and I want to be very careful with it. So I'm not going to pass it around right now. But I'm going to tell you. But does it really matter if it's working?
Yes.
It does to you? But so here's what I think. When we put the seashell up to our ears, in order to tell if it's working, what do we have to do? We have to listen. You have to pay attention. You have to get quiet. You have to block out all the other sounds of these beautiful humans laughing and chuckling. And you have to really focus in. Focus in. And then you can hear the sound of the ocean. And maybe you don't hear the sound of the ocean, but if you're getting really quiet and you're focusing in and you're blocking out all the other distractions and noises, whatever you hear is important. Maybe you hear your own self whispering to you. Maybe you hear the secrets of your heart coming to you. That inner teacher, that inner wisdom. We all have that inner teacher inside of us that knows us the very best and that has some things to tell us, but we don't listen to that inner teacher very well or very often, right, friends? Are you good at listening to that inner teacher? Maybe not all the time. Maybe we're practicing. This is a practice of deep listening. So I want to invite you today, if you have time in your classroom, to practice some deep listening with the seashell, the conch shell. But what's most important is the practice of quieting, focusing, and listening to whatever the shell or the universe has to tell you, or your inner soul has to tell you. This is just the cool way that we get there with this beautiful seashell. What's that? It's a metaphor. Yes, it is. I wasn't going to use that word because I thought, I wonder if they really know what a metaphor is. But high five, man. Yeah, it's a metaphor. So let's all practice. The invitation this whole month is to practice deep listening in a bunch of different ways. Listening to ourselves, listening to our community, the people who, not just in our families, but in our wider community. Listening to spirit, to mystery, to what some people call God, and listening to nature. So I hope you'll be with us all month. Let's join together in singing our community blessing together before you go off to your religious exploration classes. So I'll invite you all to stand up.
When we give, we say yes to the natural cycle of abundance in our lives, and we say yes to building beloved communities within and beyond our walls. We commit ourselves to do the work of justice and compassion for all the people and for our earth. Today, we share those gifts with our plate partner, the Confederate Tribes of the Duck Valley Reservation, as an expression of that commitment and living out our faith in the world. Here to share more words about Duck Valley is Tom Neal, representing our racial justice team.
Okay, good morning, beloved, beautiful community. Nice to see you all this morning. My name is Tom Neal, and I am speaking for our Racial Justice Ministry on behalf of our nearest Indigenous neighbors who live at Duck Valley. And Duck Valley is about 120 miles from here, on the Idaho-Nevada border, in case you haven't been there. I read a life-changing book back in the 90s titled, "When Jesus Came, the Corn Mothers Went Away." It is a history of the Spanish invasion that forced European culture and religion on the native peoples of the Southwest. If we were to write a comparable story of our region, we might title it, "When the Trappers, Miners, Farmers, and Missionaries Came, Our Salmon and the Original Caretakers of this place Went Away." This is homeland of the Newe, the Numu, and the Numa, and this land that we worship on was especially sacred to them as a regular meeting place because of the salmon, the beautiful river, the warm springs, and the many and varied trees that we have here. The broken and unratified treaties that our government made banished the Newe, the Numa, and the Numu to remote, restricted land. This enabled settler colonialists to exploit the resources of the state. The original caretakers of this land for thousands of years have not gone away. The Shoshone Paiute tribes continue to live and raise their families at Duck Valley. It is our hope to establish right relations with them as our indigenous neighbors. Our racial justice ministry is, as a ministry, recognizes the harm that exists in our history, and that harm continues to this day. We attempt to right a wrong, work to repair, offer reparation. We call it establishing right relations with our neighbors. Hopefully, healing can happen for all. Here are the ways that we at BUUF have interacted with our Duck Valley neighbors in the recent past. For the past 3 years, we have collected coats for the young people of Duck Valley. We have over 100 coats collected this year. Eileen and I will be taking them down to deliver them this week, probably. We supplemented their library with books written by Native authors for the young students. One spring, they asked us to supply 300 Easter eggs for their hunt. For another festival, we provided hot dogs and hamburgers as requested. We participated in field trips and retreats at Duck Valley, sponsored by the Kessler Keener Foundation. And several of us have mentored high school students that participated in playwriting workshop, also sponsored by Kessler Keener Foundation. And for the first time, we can contribute to Duck Valley as a plate partner. Yay, I know. There are many ways our plate offering may be utilized at Duck Valley. They are in the process of building a new school, a new baseball field. They are enhancing their medical facility, creating hiking trails, and they have new housing being constructed as we speak. We are so pleased they have growing trust in us as their neighbors. And I am happy to announce that our speaker for October 14th, which is the Monday week from tomorrow, and this is our 6th recognition of Indigenous Peoples Day, and she will be Linnell Brady from Duck Valley. Her topic will be understanding why cultural and traditional values are important to Native people. She will be here in person in our sanctuary 1 week from tomorrow, Monday at 7 p.m. Her presentation will also be available via Zoom, but I hope many of you can be here to listen to her stories, to hear about life at Duck Valley. As our plate partner for the month, we hope you will take this opportunity to share your generosity with our neighbors at Duck Valley. Thank you for your listening, and a lotus to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom, and our Racial Justice Ministry team, and all of you who have supported Duck Valley in the various ways over the years. We're really honored to be able to continue to live out that land acknowledgement that we see together and have together every Sunday. I'll invite our ushers to please come forward. We thank you all for your generosity. Our offering will now be received. As our ushers bring our offering gifts forward, I invite all of you to join together in the collective blessing of our offering. We bless these gifts so freely given. May generosity always be our companion as we walk the holy path toward ever greater compassion. Thank you. This fellowship is sustained not only by our giving, but by your service and leadership. And we are blessed to have so many people who give their time and talent to nurture and lead many facets of our congregational life, from serving on the board to chairing a committee, to being part of the committee on ministry or leading a social justice ministry or even a small group, to teaching and leading our children and youth in religious exploration. And we haven't done this in several years now, so I wanted to bring it back and take a moment to invite all of our leaders to come on up here behind me for a blessing of our leaders for this program year. So, however you are leading, this is self-selection, friends. I'm not going to call you out. But I'll suggest, if you're a board member, if you're on the committee on ministry, if you're chairing or leading a committee of any kind, if you serve regularly on the crew that does our beautiful memorial services, that, my friends, is deep leadership. So come on up here. Don't be shy. Others will come when you come up here. Board members lead the way. There we go. There we go. You can just line up behind me here on the chancel, smushed together. Good job, because I really was hoping that all of you would come forward so that we could all really recognize the depth of the leadership pool that exists in this congregation. representation of the leadership among us. So we do have a blessing for you. Patricia and I are going to read a blessing for you, and then we'll come through the line and offer you a blessing with our water communion water.
That I was going to the pulpit.
It's all good. This blessing is a blessing for leadership from the poet John O'Donohue. May you have the grace and wisdom to act kindly, learning to distinguish between what is personal and what is not.
May you be hospitable in your criticism. May you never put yourself at the center of things. May you act not from arrogance, but out of service.
May you work on yourself, building up and refining the ways of your mind.
May those who work with you know you see and respect them.
May you learn to cultivate the art of presence in order to engage with those who meet you.
When someone fails or disappoints you, may the graciousness with which you engage be their stairway to renewal and refinement.
May you know the wisdom of deep listening, the healing of wholesome words, the encouragement of the appreciative gaze, the decorum of held dignity, the springtime edge of the bleak question.
May you have a mind that loves frontiers so that you can evoke the bright fields that lie beyond the view of the regular eye. May you have good friends to mirror your blind spots.
May leadership for all of you be a true adventure of growth. And with our sacred gathered waters combined with the waters gathered over decades, we bless you and the work of your hearts and hands in service of the mission and vision of this beloved community. I invite you all to put your hands out and we'll just bless your hands. Thank you, leaders. Thank you. Thank you. You may be seated.
I know your leadership.
Steve just came to me and blessed my own leadership. Thank you, Steve. But you know all, I got your blessing as I was blessing you. The water are on my hands as well, so thank you. I want us to rise and body your spirit, sing together a beautiful hymn that blesses all of us who serve together to make this beloved community truly amazing. We are gonna sing Now Let Us Sing, number 368 in our gray hymnal, and words on the screen. I'll invite you to rise and body your spirit, and I want to talk you through the slide a little bit if you're a slide follower, because it's going to look a little funky. And maybe, Carrie, would you mind coming up here, because we could probably use some hymn direction on this hymn. Oh, somebody got a hymnal for Carrie. Yes, we can find one. I'm sure there's one around, a gray hymnal. So this is kind of an echo song, so the main line, now let us sing, sing, sing. You can sing. And then there's an echo line, sing to the power of the faith within. That's how these slides look, okay? It's repetitive, you'll get it, but now you know. 3, 6, 8. Elizabeth and Carrie are going to come up here and help direct us through this.
I'll do Now Let Us. Now let us sing.
Now, I brought this song to this congregation in 1988 when we didn't have a gray hymnal.
Friends, Reverend Elizabeth Green brought this song. Do you want to say a thing? Brought this song, she's not using the microphone, brought this song to the congregation in 1988 before there ever was this hymnal. So you're welcome. It's a great song. Let us sing to the power.
So y'all follow me?
Yes.
Okay.
And we'll do
So
the,
I got Now Let Us.
we'll do the kind of like italicized stuff, okay?
2 measure it.
Confidence, confidence.
You're getting it. Thank you, directors. Thank you. Isn't that fun? That is such a fun one. We're going to sing that one more often because it's lively and it's fun, and then we'll really get the hang of it and know it. It's still so interesting to me how we have slowly brought back these hymns that we sang so long ago that we used to know really well, and then the pandemic hit, and all our brains just went. Woo. So we're learning them all again. It's like we're learning them all again. I have been fretting a little bit about this sermon all week long. This sermon on self-care, a sermon I've been wanting to give since I read a fabulous book, not because I'm good at it. But self-care is such a loaded term. And I think while that we all can agree that self-care is vital to our overall health and well-being, the term has kind of been co-opted by the wellness industry and turned into a kind of consumerist competition to the tune of more than $10 billion a year. New York Times reporter Tressie McMillan describes it like this: the idea of taking care of yourself is not merely virtuous, it's become a cultural expectation. The catch-22 of self-care becoming big business is that taking time to refuel, recharge, and reconnect as self-care asks of us ends up feeling just like another productivity chore, the kind that led us to burnout in the first place. And with all that is happening in our world, all that is happening, all the devastation, the war and the violence and the destruction and the natural disasters and communities right now today without water or power or homes are gone, an escalating politics of meanness and rancor, the rise of tyranny and extremism, to focus on self-care, as it has been branded by the wellness industry, feels a little frivolous and self-indulgent. Except it's not. at all. How many of you, just a quick straw poll, how many of you would honestly say that, yeah, I'm pretty good at self-care? Good job, Bill. Shireen, awesome. Sue, I knew there'd be a few of you like, oh, who among us can we go to for some support and guidance as we struggle our way through? Because there are folks who are really good at it. Real self-care, as described by Dr. Pooja Lakshmin, psychiatrist and author of the book of the same name, Real Self-Care, is about ongoing internal work, a way of being that helps us align with our deepest sense of self. And real self-care practices include setting boundaries, practicing self-compassion, letting go of guilt, making choices aligned with our values, and exercising our power. Practices that invite us to listen deeply to ourselves so that we are taking care of ourselves in order to affect change in our relationships, families, workplaces, and in the broken systems that surround us, planting seeds of change in our community. The early self-care movement, as we understand it today, began as a pillar of radical Black feminism in the 70s and 80s. Audre Lorde, the renowned Black queer radical feminist, author, and poet and activist, wrote about the idea of self-care as necessary to basic survival. After her cancer returned for the second time, she wrote these words in her book of essays, A Burst of Light. She wrote, "I had to examine, in my dreams as well as in my immune function tests, the devastating effects of overextension. Overextending myself is not stretching myself. I had to accept how difficult it is to monitor the difference. Necessary for me as cutting down on sugar. Crucial, physically, psychically. Caring for myself," she writes, "is not self-indulgence, it is self-preservation, and that is an act of political warfare." Okay, now how are we feeling about self-care now? Puts a different spin on it, right? I like those words. I get kind of chills. My hair stands up when I read those words. And she wrote these words as she was wrestling with the impact of her cancer while still doing the work of fighting intersectional injustices, racism, sexism, homophobia. That work that continues to inspire generations of activists creating movements of resistance even today. Self-care as a Black radical feminist concept steeped in community. Like many other things in our dominant culture, like we heard about our indigenous neighbors from Tom, was subjected to some serious whitewashing and co-opting by big business. Contemporary activist Kathleen Bremming wrote, "Self-care cannot be, quote, an act of political warfare if the only battle you're waging is against your frown lines with a $110 moisturizer." There it is, right there. And true confession time. I have often succumbed to that self-care consumerism, thinking that the moisturizer, not $110, but still, or the yoga workout, or the meditation app, or the candles, or the chanting, or just taking 15 minutes a day just for myself, and yes, some enormously expensive products, constituted focusing on my own self-care, and thus was a preventative to burnout. But alas, these tools, as wonderful as many of them are, and they do have a positive effect for a time, but they don't really make a dent in the societal machine that feeds on burnout. They're offered by the wellness industry as solutions to burnout. But these are temporary and often expensive solutions, and they won't change the fact that 30 million Americans are uninsured, and a quarter of American workers don't have paid sick days. Or the fact that if you're a black woman, you have to work for 19 months to make the same amount of money as a white man will make in 12 months. And so then a new machine is born that makes preventing burnout, and one could argue managing depression and anxiety fueled by the current conditions of our culture, that makes that prevention an individual responsibility. The onus is placed on us as individuals to manage and prevent rather than critically examine and help push back on and even change the very systems that contribute to this burnout. Systems like lack of affordable childcare, sustainable living wages, no parental leave, lack of health care benefits. And of course, then remembering that those systems have a disproportionate negative impact on people of marginalized identities, people of color, Black and brown women in particular, queer folks, disabled folks. So self-care, then, in this context, is deeply connected to our Unitarian Universalist identity, to our theology, this theology of love for all, love at the center, to our UU values, the foundations of who we are and who we aspire to be. And honestly, I never really thought about it in those terms before. I always felt that it was important and that I should make it a priority, even if I seldom did so. But real self-care invites us to embody a set of principles that help us ground and orient our entire life. And while they are so helpful and so powerful, they don't always feel as good as some of what Dr. Lakshman names faux self-care, the tools that bring us pleasure but little real change. And there's room for those tools, don't misunderstand. But here's how she understands what real self-care looks like. It looks like setting boundaries. Everyone's talking about boundaries these days. I heard a yes from the back, and it sounds so easy, but boundaries are hard stuff. The boundaries are limits that we set for ourselves about how we want to show up in the world and how we want to be treated in order to support our healthy relationships and maintain healthy self-esteem, and sometimes for that self-preservation, for inviting respect and empathy. Boundaries can be as simple as shutting your door with a do not disturb sign to create some quiet space for reflection or just focused work time. That's a boundary. But they can also be sticky and complicated, like telling a family member you will not be coming over for Thanksgiving dinner if they refuse to use your child's name and pronouns, or if they crack offensive racist jokes. That's a hard boundary. Creating and maintaining boundaries helps us protect what is most important to us. It helps us protect our time and energy and our hearts and our spirits. And it is especially needed in a world constantly demanding more of our time, more of our energy, and often trying to break our spirits. Real self-care also looks like clarifying values and then aligning our choices with those values. Right after I had started seminary, I was working in the church part-time as a religious educator. I was going to seminary. I had to do a field internship, so I was doing that with Planned Parenthood. I worked part-time at the church, and I had a new baby. And a colleague I deeply respected, who had worked for the UUA for years and had just completed her own seminary training, told me that when she was juggling all of those same things during that chaotic time in her life, she kept having to remind herself of the priorities, the values that she set for herself based on her values. And she said they were in this order. Number 1, family, kids. Number 2, self and spirit. Number 3, work. Number 4, school. She said sometimes that meant she had to half-ass an assignment or that she was late with a work deadline. I was a little bit stunned. I was new to this kind of work life. And even though I worked for a UU church, it never occurred to me that you could do that. I had lived my own life by the unspoken but highly reinforced cultural rules that reward hard work, which means overwork, that rewards success and achievement, that going above and beyond, overextending oneself, like Audre Lorde talks about, and of course, self-sacrifice, which means sacrificing self-care and free time, and often which meant family time. And after that conversation, I clarified my own values real fast, and I have been trying to make much different choices to varying degrees of success, because it sure isn't easy. For Unitarian Universalists, we have some beautiful, clearly articulated values that are excellent guideposts for us and can inform a lot of our simpler life choices, like what kind of car we might buy when we're in the market for a new car, or like, for example, what kind of HVAC system we might put in a new building with heat pumps that's climate friendly and will help us get to carbon neutral, even if it's more expensive. For many of you, you already hold those values. Those values probably led you here to choose a community who shared those values, who would welcome you and your children and help strengthen and reinforce those values in your lives. Many of us use our values to help us decide how we will spend our free time, our talents, our resources, working on issues we care about, from being part of a play about the rise of fascism, or bringing food to our food pantry, or writing postcards. I think for the most part, we Unitarian Universalists have this clarifying values part down. We're good at that. The challenge is we can let it overtake us and overextend us, such that we become exhausted and overwhelmed and spread too thin. And then we got to go back and set some new boundaries, which leads us to self-compassion. Because in all of this work, Dr. Lakshman also adds that self-compassion also connects with learning to deal with your guilt about maybe disappointing people, with your guilt about maybe not doing enough according to those societal cultural expectations. It's another important point that in this work that is really hard, and it likely brings up a lot of feelings of guilt when we really dive into it. So we practice leaning into and strengthening our self-compassion. Dr. Kristin Neff is one of medicine's foremost leaders in self-compassion and medical research, and has a beautiful website on self-compassion if you want some resources, many, many resources, including a quiz you can take about where your own self-compassion really lies. But Dr. Neff reminds us that the research shows that when we care about ourselves, when we give ourselves self-compassion, we're willing to undergo discomfort for our own well-being. That self-compassionate people are more likely to exercise and eat well and get regular medical checkups and generally engage in health-promoting behavior. And that people who practice self-compassion are more giving and supportive to others in their relationships. Professional and family caregivers are more able to care for others without becoming drained and burned out. Self-compassion can go a long way to helping us set those boundaries. And finally, real self-care involves exercising our power. I never thought about self-care as exercising power before. But it invites us to recognize that real self-care needs to be as much a personal practice as a collective practice. It's about deep listening to ourselves and to our community, and then using our power to take collective action. Particularly for those of us who hold more privileges in community. If you are somebody that has privilege, if you have lighter skin or financial resources, if you are able-bodied, knowing that you get power from those things gives you a little more responsibility to put it back out into the community. Because if we don't also work on systems of change, then the conditions under which burnout and exhaustion and a whole host of other terrible issues, they're allowed to flourish. And we keep ourselves and our communities in this vicious cycle of perpetuating the illusion that all you need is a daily practice or a fancy bottle of something and all will be well. And real self-care is not the absence of suffering, unfortunately. I think sometimes I like to think it is. Buddhist wisdom, however, helps us remember that suffering is a part of life, one of the Four Noble Truths. And practicing real self-care, which asks us to listen to ourselves deeply and honor our deepest needs and truths and feelings, to help us build a life of meaning and purpose, and I would add faith, and then bring that out into the world in every way we can. That is real self-care. And this is also the invitation of our Unitarian Universalist tradition. We practice the values of this faith. We come together for spiritual growth and learning and nourishment and renewal for community care and connection. But keeping it insular, keeping it inside ourselves or just inside these walls is not enough, because this faith, Unitarian Universalism, calls us to be of the world, calls us to be part of building the world we dream about, calls us to help create and nurture the beloved community wherever we are, and listening deeply, especially to ourselves, as that is the often the most neglected. The practice of deep listening is one of the stepping stones on that path to wholeness, healing, and transformation for ourselves and for the world. May it be so. I invite you to join me in a spirit of prayer and meditation. Spirit of life and love, holy mystery, source of all that speaks to us in all manner of ways, beckoning us to care for ourselves. Let us listen. To the song in our hearts that yearns to be free, let us listen. To the deep in us calling, the deep that invites clarity of heart and mind, that we might align our life with our deepest values. Let us listen. To the inner teacher that offers self-compassion even when we resist, let us listen. To the cries of our hurting world, the brokenhearted and stricken, let us listen. To the beauty and joy that surrounds us always, to the sun and moon and stars, to the trees and birds and wild waters, let us listen. And in our listening, may we become vessels of comfort and compassion, vessels of hope and healing, vessels of peace and justice. In the name of all that is holy, we pray. Amen.
called me in, and she said to me, you better take time in life. People take time in life, people take time in life, people take time in life, 'cause you got far way to go. Take time in life, 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 take time in life.
I was lost when my mother told me, and he said to me, you better take time in life. People take time in life. People take time in life. People take time in life. It's like a party.
I was passing by, my friend called me in, and they said to me, you better take time in life. People take time in life. People take time in life. People take time in life, 'cause you got far way to go. Take time in life. 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 Take time in life.
There it is in one phrase, friends. One phrase. Take time in life. I invite you to rise, embody your spirit as you are able, and place your hands over your heart for our closing blessing. As we go forth from here, out into our lives and into the world, may we open our hearts with all the compassion we can muster for ourselves, for each other, for the world. And may that compassion guide us to more tenderness, to care for ourselves, listening deeply to our values, setting boundaries, and using our power to help change and heal the world. Blessed are we all. Go in peace. That's the earworm we're going to get to leave. I said, I'm glad that's the earworm we're going to get to leave. I would love to, yeah.